Hello. So I haven't made one of these type of videos in months, but I always follow news stories that have to do with women and especially missing women, violence against women. It's not because I like it, it's just because I'm kind of very aware of what we face as women, and especially women of color. Not that I'm totally of color, but you know what I mean. So I like to just know what's going on and to kind of build up my thoughts about this and to speak out against it and to think of ways to take action and to be better in my own life and to help the men in my life be better. So, what's been on my mind lately is that in the past year or two, I've heard a lot of stories of women, especially young women, who have been killed by ex-boyfriends, former lovers, love interests, husbands, people that supposedly liked them, loved them, whatever, at some point, who then killed them for not obeying their wishes, for saying no, whatever it is. So being afraid of being hurt when you say no to a man is something that most of us women can relate to. Even if you're walking down the street, you're afraid of, what if some guy comes up to me and, is harassing me for my phone number or whatever. And if I say no, like, is he going to come after me? It goes from strangers all the way up to your husband. Like, okay, if I say no to him for having sex, is he going to hurt me? Is he going to go off and cheat on me? Is he going to not love me anymore? Whatever it is, we feel the pressure, whether it's emotional or a threat of physical harm, we feel it. So I just wanted to say the names and brief overview of the stories of a few women and girls who unfortunately lost their lives in the past year or so to men who killed them for saying no to them. And we need to remember them, look into their stories, and push for justice in these situations. So the first story that you can look into is the death of the murder of Jessica Chambers, who was a 19-year-old from Mississippi. And I just looked into the news for her case again because I wasn't sure if there were any updates, because there have been mistrials with her murderer. But apparently her murderer, whose name is Quentin Tellis, he was in his 20s when she was killed, and she was 19. This happened in 2014, actually. Apparently she denied his advances or didn't act how he wanted to in some way with that, and he set her car and her on fire, but somehow she survived and, walked out into the road and was discovered, but then later succumbed to her injuries. And it was just horrifying. This story is horrifying, heartbreaking, senseless. It's just really, and it's torn their community apart. So please look into this case if you are interested in crime and justice. There have been a few mistrials already. And now her murderer, who also murdered somebody else, a girl named Ming Chen Xiao, I don't know exactly how you say it, but I think that's it, for her debit card a few years before, but he was just serving time for debit card fraud. I don't know. So he could be getting out early now, which is terrifying, that a man who has murdered two young women, in cold blood, could be out on the street. So hopefully he gets charged with both of these murders and gets locked behind bars. But because he is black and Jessica was white, there's a lot of racial stuff involved. And this is like a gender issue, a gender and sexual issue, in my opinion, although it maybe has become a racial issue. And we need to examine why these men feel so empowered to kill these women for no reason except, for saying no, or I want to use your debit card. The next woman that we need to remember is a girl named Tiarah Poyau, a girl, 22 years old. The man who killed her was 20. But Tiarah was an international tax intern at PricewaterhouseCoopers and an aspiring accountant. and she was apparently going to go, or just started graduate school after she had finished undergrad at St. John's. And she was beautiful, just like Jessica. All of these girls had their own, beauty and their own goals, family aspirations. And even if they didn't, like, even if you are literally just a lump on a log, like, I don't want to do anything, go anywhere, I don't know anybody, you don't deserve to be killed for saying no. She was at the Juve Party Festival in Brooklyn, New York, which is like a party before the West Indian Day Parade. And stuff always gets crazy at Juve and on the West Indian Day Parade. But this was a very weird and personal thing. Sometimes it's gang violence or drunken rowdiness. And while the man who killed her was drunk, he killed her because he was grinding on her, like dancing. And she had the nerve to say, "Stop, can you get off of me?" And he shot her in the eye. So, yeah, she literally died just for saying, "I don't want to dance with you, especially sexually like that. Can you please stop?" Killed her. Now, apparently, the man who has been in Rikers Island awaiting trial for the past 2 years for this murder might not be the actual murderer because he was very drunk and doesn't remember anything, he says. And they just found evidence that might implicate somebody else committed the crime. So I hope that if it wasn't the man that they thought, that they find and charge the man who did. But I just hope that the right man goes to prison and that somebody who is innocent isn't, sitting in jail for any longer. 2 years is quite enough. But if he did it, then that's great. But yeah, so as of last summer, there were some breaks in the case. So keep an eye out for this case. Let's hope that the correct person gets brought to justice because Tiarah deserves that. The next woman that we need to remember is 18-year-old Mariah Davis, who was killed in California when she was strangled by her ex-boyfriend. Mariah went missing and her family filed a missing persons report, and then she was found dead in a park. According to her family and friends, she had been abused by her boyfriend, Anthony Pimentel, for the past 2 years, and they had finally broken up. And then this happened. And Mariah was a smart, vibrant girl who was involved in social justice and had the whole world ahead of her. They describe her as selfless, always smiling, an amazing scholar, and they describe her as beautiful inside and out, which she was definitely beautiful on the outside, so I believe them. Everybody is beautiful, but she really was. Apparently, Mariah had gone to meet him for lunch. We know how these things go if you've been in a relationship, like, oh, like, let's meet up, like, have some closure or catch up or whatever. So on September 23rd of 2018, Mariah and her ex-boyfriend, Anthony Pimentel, were last seen at a restaurant, and then her car was found somewhere else later on, but Mariah was nowhere to be found. So we can assume that she was murdered on September 23rd of 2018. Mariah said no to being abused and probably to getting back together and ended up paying with her life. Since he turned himself in, I don't think there will be an issue with getting him charged for this murder, but keep an eye on it. Then there was Lauren McClusky, who was a track athlete at the University of Utah, who was killed by her ex-boyfriend on October 22nd, 2018. She had alerted campus police to his threatening text messages, to his criminal record, all of these things multiple times, and they didn't do anything about it. She also had gotten the real police involved, and I'm going to put a link down below, but they released her 911 calls. She had reached out apparently 6 times to the police in the 10 days before she was murdered. She knew in her heart that something was going to go down. Her friends at college also reached out and filed a report with the University of Utah, but they decided to not overstep their boundaries if Lauren wasn't seeking help. But she was trying to seek help, so I'm not really sure what they meant by that. Lauren's parents even called the college because they were concerned that when her boyfriend was going to return her car or something to her, that he would hurt her in the process. So Lauren had said no to continuing their relationship because she found out that this man that she was dating was lying about his age and his criminal record, and that he was a sex offender. In 2004, he had been convicted of enticing a minor and attempted forcible sexual abuse, and had spent over a decade in prison and had been released on parole 3 times, but had violated that parole, so he had been sent back to prison twice. And of course, this alarmed her, and she tried to break it off with him. Her boyfriend's name is Melvin Rowland. Melvin had also asked for $1,000 from her to keep sexy pictures of her private, which just adds a whole new level of sexual power games to this that is disgusting. 75% of women who are murdered by their abusive partners are killed when they are trying to end or leave the relationship. So this is a very scary time and a known trigger for violence and murders. The law and even college laws, rules are meant to protect men, are made by men, are meant to respect the privacy and autonomy of men. So it's not meant to protect us. So Lauren was found in the backseat of a car on campus, shot dead, and the police apparently had chased Roland down in Salt Lake City, but he slipped through the back door of a church and killed himself. So there's no justice here. He got the last word in all of this, unless you believe in some sort of punishment after death. In this life, there was no justice served. So I'm definitely going to make more of these videos, but I just wanted to put those girls out there. They are from all over the country, different racial backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds. But yeah, it just amazes me. One's from Utah, one's from California, one's from Mississippi, one's from New York, and all of them just wanted to live and live their lives in peace and do better for themselves, and they didn't get to do any of that. So to all of you and all of us who have survived saying no to somebody, who have been abused or hurt by partners, by people who were interested in us or loved us, all of us, all of you who have survived this, like, that is amazing. We are lucky, really lucky and strong, but mostly lucky. And I don't know if everything happens for a reason. I can't imagine that things do when things like this happen, when childhood cancer exists, war, famine, all of these things. But we are alive, so we can speak out for those who are not and speak up for them and demand that we create a world where this doesn't happen and that this is not acceptable. So unacceptable that it can't even be a thought anymore. Like, I don't know what it will take to get there, because people are sick and our emotions, our ego, our illnesses get the best of us. So stay strong, keep fighting. Don't let yourself feel victimized or weakened by anybody, and there are people out there who care, like me.